Good morning. This is Bill from Auto Europa Naples on a rooster-laden Friday. I can hear them down there. They're massing, hopefully not for an attack. But I'm gonna, keep my head turned. Well, you can hear them. Keep my head turned, pretend they're not there, and just keep going forward. And I'm happy to go forward with this 1972 Cadillac Sedan DeVille. Now I hope it's showing up okay. I seem to have lost the video camera I normally use. I'm back to using a crappy old iPhone. But, it barely fits. I wish it had a wide-angle lens because this is a big car. Again, 1972 was a little bit of a banner year for Cadillac. Sales were going pretty well. It's one of my favorite years because of the headlight and grille treatment. You've got the spaced front headlights with the round and the square, the little parking lamps in between, the horizontal boxed grille. It's just a great looking car. Sedan DeVilles, of course, had no pillars, so you could open up the entire side of the car by putting the windows down, something like a hardtop convertible, they used to call it back in the day. And look at the length of this thing. Absolutely incredible. It finished in kind of a Caribbean blue with matching brocade interior. This thing is a real survivor. It is straight as an arrow down both sides. I believe it to have mostly original paint. It looks like it's had a little paint work here and there. The original vinyl roof in great shape. It is altogether just a fantastic car. Look at the big white walls with the fender skirts. This is my era. It really is. I mean, it's just a giant boat. There's a ride that this thing has that's unlike anything else. The pencil-thin steering wheel with the effortless steering. It's a car that I just love driving. Cadillac, of course, has an incredibly rich history. It was put together by a guy named, what the hell was his name? Leland, last name. He worked for Henry Ford. Actually, he was one of the investors and crew that was part of the Henry Ford Motor Company. But when that dissolved in 1904 or somewhere around there, with disputes, he convinced the remaining investors who were put out by Henry Ford to start another company. And this guy, Leland, he had apprenticed under Samuel Colt, which taught him the absolute value of using precision engineering when it came to parts and stuff going in the car. And that led to Cadillac being called the standard of the world. The way that happened was there's this little competition by a company named Dewar's, which, is sort of the Nobel Prize for cars. It's, if they give you an award, you've earned it. And they took 3 Cadillacs from that vintage, took them apart, jumbled them all up, and made them put them back together. So now the cars were going back together with, parts that were previously on another car. They fired right up. They drove them for 500 miles. Everybody was suitably impressed at the precision engineering Cadillac had. In fact, Leland even went to Sweden to get the instruments to help, design and assemble the car. So he was a pretty hard case. Anyway, it just started a long string of firsts and victories for Cadillac. They had the first presidential limo, bulletproof, was Al Capone's old car. There's kind of a little-known fact. So Capone had this 28 Cadillac that was bulletproof. It was confiscated by the government. About 10, 12 years later, Franklin Roosevelt's going to give his Day of Infamy speech. Everyone's paranoid. There's war nerves all over the place. They needed a bulletproof car, and there it was. The only one available was Capone's old Cadillac, so they grabbed it, and Franklin rode in style. Also, Cadillac was the first to utilize this incredible new technology called the Phillips screw, which was, of course, invented by a gentleman named Smith. No, I'm kidding. Of course, it was invented by a guy named Phillips, and Cadillac utilized it. It helped make their assembly better and faster, and they just very much like Mercedes-Benz. Cadillac was all about innovation. In fact, they also brought, I know I'm rambling here, but I got a lot of this stuff to get out. They brought the first electric crank to the motor, which is the etymology of the word cranky. So if you're coming into work all pissed off, a strong chance it was because you couldn't get your damn car to start with the crank on the front. So Cadillac, they brought out an electric starter, put that all, into the annals of history. They were also the first company to use a steel roof on a car, formerly mostly fabric-covered wood, and the first car to use electric lights. So, pretty neat history from these guys on down through the years. Anyway, by the time 1972 rolled around, they were selling a ton of cars. They were widely considered to be the best America had to offer. They were a standard of success. You know, if you're an executive or a, you know, guy who owns a bunch of gas stations, or, you know, boss hog, then you're probably going to drive a Cadillac, and damn well, as you should. So anyway, let's get into this one. We're going to start inside the trunk. So to do that, you have to flip up this little guy. I think in the old days that would have caught and stuck, but from use. Oh, they're staying up. Nice. Then you can flip it down. Okay, so this, you know, this is one of those things all the jokes come from about dead bodies and cargo. I mean, this is an enormous trunk. I mean, this trunk is so big, it is frankly bordering on ludicrous. There's nothing you're not going to be able to put in here. Suitcases, dressers, you know, front end loaders, whatever you want, you can stuff it in here. You can see this, there's all big scratches and, you know, screwed up looking weather seal. You know, that's fine. It shows you just how original this car is, including the jacking instruction sticker there, the jack. If you get under this thing, all hard as a rock. That looks like rust, but it's just glue. It's absolutely perfect in this car as far as the corrosion goes. It just doesn't have it. Fantastic stuff. Look at the beautiful way the reverse lights are integrated into the bumper. Those two, you know, sort of slitty, football-shaped, ovoid, pointy rear bumpers, cone head looking things. Very, very cool, all with the Cadillac crest put in there. Cadillac is a French word, actually a French name. Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac. He's the guy who basically started Detroit, and when Leland put this car together, he thought, you know, why not name it after this guy? Unfortunately, with the French name and the lineage, the second George Bush did decree that these things had to be called freedom cars in the early 2000s. All right, let's have a look under the hood. I love the vinyl roof, I really do. This thing is such a survivor. We'll see if I can get this hood up one-handed. It'll be a little bit of a challenge. Oh my God. Oh God, left-handed no less. Okay, unbelievable that those hinges can actually keep this thing up, but there it is, a 472 cubic inch big block Cadillac motor. The 72 is the first year they went to a net horsepower rating instead of this gross, ridiculous, you know, made up number. So it had about 220 horse. You know, if the year before it probably had about 410. Either way, it'll light up the rear tires. It's got a ton of torque. It sucks enough gas to, you know, run the USS Enterprise and not the one in space. It is an incredible, you know, cousin to the high performance big blocks that just moves this big 5,000 pound thing down the road. Thanks, I appreciate that. See, it's one of these cars that just stops people and makes them talk to you, even if you hate it when people stop and talk to you. Anyway, this big can-shaped AC compressor, fantastic. You know, keeps the cabin nice and cool, still working. All very original under the hood of this car, in great shape and runs like a top. You know, look at this. There's no rust under here. Everything's just lovely on this thing. You can tell it's such a survivor. I believe it came out of Texas. Jesus, that's a loud bang. Sedan DeVille, more of that French stuff. All right, in the back, there's that beautiful brocade, kind of a silky with the buttons, the vinyl in the middle, lovely. Plenty of room back there. Although you'd think it would have like 8 feet of legroom with the length of this thing, and it really doesn't. But either way, it's fine. All the door panels, nice, tight, not coming apart, not popping out. You know, there's a hint of a crack, but barely anything. Some of these cars get so blown out, all the stuff's popping out. The ashtray, nice, still works. All the interior lighting still working, absolutely lovely. And, you know, just a true survivor of a car, this thing. All right, up front, same story, all original, never redone. You know, I mean, it's got its flaws. If you look at this little wood steering wheel inlay, it's all kind of cracked and missing. The seats, there's a little bit of a seam split here. Otherwise, it is exactly as it came, and there, you know, nobody's ever touched it up. Nobody's ever fixed a seat. This is a true Survivor interior, original like the day it came, and that's pretty cool stuff. You can see all the door pulls, nice. Window switches, locks, all work great. There's your wiper controls in a very convenient spot up there. When you close it, it becomes part of the dash. You can see there's no rust on the rockers underneath, all very mint, lovely. You can just tell this was never a snow car. All right, let's hop in and see what we got. Now, you see at the end of the fenders, those little indicators. This car had fiber optics running all the way through it to let you know when headlights or taillights are out. So also when your brights are on. Pretty cool stuff. By the way, Leland eventually left Cadillac and moved in over at Lincoln. And then he immediately made Lincoln bankrupt, and then Ford bought Lincoln. And after a few months, kind of had him escorted out of the building. It must have been great revenge for Henry Ford, who's supposedly something of a bastard. All right, let's fire it up. Listen to the rumble of that thing. It is just vicious. Now, a little bit of a sporty sounding exhaust on this one. A German guy owned it, a good friend of mine. I don't know if he had, Dynamaxes put on it or something, but it's got more of it sounds more like a Chevelle than a Cadillac to me. I would probably put big caddy mufflers on this thing and quiet it down, but yeah, whatever you like. Anyway, you've got automatic climate control over there. Very nice. Cadillac was also the first one to do that. You see the PRNDL there in the middle, that horizontal speedometer, which is pretty cool. If I put the windows down, you see there's no B pillar at all, no C pillar, just a giant expanse of open air on the sides. So that's pretty cool stuff. And all the windows do work very properly. I'm shaking this morning. Had 3 cups of coffee before I got here. All right, nice. Also, 70s style, the seat belts can be tucked up and away in the safe position anywhere where the passengers can't get to them. Got an analog clock in the dash. I don't believe that's working. That wouldn't be uncommon. But, no cracks up there. Everything's super nice. Let's get our AC on. See what that does. Some cold air blowing out of here. All the vents, the glove box. All these lights work. Like the glove box light working. Nice stuff. Open the door. You've got these lights. This one came on earlier. There it goes. Look at that. It's still working. Really, really cool to see. Now they put in some kind of an aftermarket radio in a pretty nice location way down low. You can run it with this thing, and it goes through the factory system and sounds great. I think they replaced all the speakers. If you look here in the dash, all the little chrome trim that can be worn off and beat up, it's nice, it's proper. Original factory stereo still there. Cadillac also brought the first self-dimming headlights and the first, seek function on a radio, if you will. There's the passenger side window adjust. Nice, very standard looking rearview mirror, and some big giant visors. Anyway, let's go for a spin. God, do I love driving this car. The steering is fantastic. It's so light effort. You barely know you're touching a wheel. You could drive it with your pinky. You just were able to spin this thing around like you wouldn't believe. And what a driver. I had it, 80, 85 on the interstate on the way back here today. And it was flawless, absolutely flawless. It felt like I was, gliding on air, no vibration. The steering wheel was centered. It just was doing what it was made to do. That big 8, it doesn't throw your head back in the seat or anything, but it's more than adequate to move this almost 5,000-pound car down the road. And it just glides. Oh God, it just glides. This is, to me, All right, so there's a blast from the past, the phone call that comes in and does away with the video. Anyway, this is to me the essence of Cadillac. I mean, you know, all these CTSVs with their, 170 mile an hour, 800 horsepower engines and suspension tuned at the Nürburgring. It's all fantastic, and it's a great part of the modern era, and Cadillac really restored itself. But, give me the pencil-thin steering wheel, the effortless, ride, the feel of incredible, well-built, float-on-air Luxo barge, ride, and I'm a happy guy. God, the sun. And anyway, so there it is. So, maybe I'm a dinosaur, I'm stuck in the past, it's fine, but I'm gonna drive this old 72 Cadillac and have a lot of fun with it. If you have an interest in it, you won't be disappointed. It's such a survivor, this car. It's really, if you want to make it perfect, great, it's a good candidate for that. If you want to just drive it and enjoy it, it's an even better candidate for that. So if you have an interest, give us a call, 239-298-8000, on the web at aenaples.com. Thank you so much for having a look. We appreciate it. We'll see you with the next one. Take care.